Conversations with Ishiekwene.
Established on the 1st of April 1977, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited is 48 years old, less than 2 years to its golden jubilee. In these nearly 5 decades of existence, the NNPC, instead of being a treasure trove, has become a life-threatening affair, draining Nigeria of its oil wealth to enrich vested interests. For instance, the corporation currently has a 210 trillion naira audit query from the Senate Committee on Public Accounts. The corporation hardly comes clean on any metrics of accountability. I'm yet to see any public company anywhere in the world that has run down 4 refineries, forcing an oil-producing country to rely on imports for local consumption. In its 48-year history, the corporation has had 12 GMDs, Group Managing Directors, currently designated as a Group Chief Executive Officers. The incumbent Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bayo Ojulari, has been in the news in a manner that suggests that the NNPC is not about to redeem a historically poor image. You must be curious, as I am. Was Bayo Ojulari sacked or suspended? Whatever happened, welcome to Conversation with Azu, our weekly diary on life and politics. Our topic today is titled, What Happened in the Matter of Bayo Ojulari? The writer of the column, Ishiekwene, is with me to discuss this subject. Welcome to Conversation, Azu.
Thanks for having me back after was it 2 or 3 week break?
Yeah,
nice to be
2
back.
weeks break.
Thank you.
Yes. So, for starters, I will dive straight into the subject. The presidency didn't issue a statement. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources didn't issue a statement either. Was Bayo Ojulari, yet the media was in some sort of frenzy about a sack, a suspension, or whatever about the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC. You happen to have some insight, so please tell us what really happened.
Thank you, Julius. I think the presidency issued a statement, but of course that statement was not immediately after the public was inundated by the news of an alleged abduction and a forced resignation and all of that. I think it was maybe 1 or 2 days later. It came later than most people perhaps expected or anticipated. Well, yes, I think the president issued a statement to the effect that Bayo Ojulari had not been removed as the NNPC's Group Chief Executive Officer. So as to the insights, part of which I shared in my column this week, the point of curiosity for me was really that after the noise and the fuss over has he resigned, has he been abducted, was he abducted, and all of that, he showed up in the office, and it did seem almost immediately that it was going to be life as usual. But the NNPC NNPCL is at the heart of, it's really the artery, if you like, of the main artery, if you like, of Nigeria's financial and economic survival. So I thought that we should take more than a passing interest in what exactly happened. That really is the background and the motivation for the article of this week.
And do you think the media lived up to the billing? Did
No,
I
don't.
Absolutely.
No, I absolutely not. I mean, of course, the first stories that came out suggested that, it was some bedroom manipulation somewhere that went awry and all of that, and the security agencies abducted him and all of that, which really was frightening, because you think that for a company like, which I think was a subject that the media ought to have been more deeply interested in, because for a company like NNPC, or NNPCL, as it's been known in the last couple of years, that has a board, and that has shareholders, because we're all supposed to be shareholders. That's all Nigerians, the 220 or whatever number of Nigerians, we're all supposed to be shareholders. But that shares are supposed to be held in trust by the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources Incorporated, 50-50 basis, and of course with oversight by the National Assembly. So really, it's, if you like, I pardon my cliche, it's the national patrimony that obviously is at stake. And you would think that that is a sufficient public interest story for the media to be interested. But I didn't see enough of that. So, which was, again, the second motivation for me to do a deep dive and try to understand and share with members of the public my perspective on what I think actually happened.
All right. In your column, you stated that he's had over 35 years experience in the media industry.
Yes.
And you also suggest that he, in spite of that experience, he seems to be acting naive. Yes. What is he supposed to be doing that he's not actually doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. You see, the way the public sector works is the public sector culture is completely different from what you have in the private sector. And for people who have spent years of service in the private sector, some of the first things they notice when they have never been in public sector, public sector person, thankfully, but I have heard and read enough and followed enough of the stories. But obviously, one of the first things that happens is a culture shock, because you're used to doing things in a certain way. You're used to measuring performance by results, and then you go to a place where, hey man, it's the just look, bro, just calm down, calm down. And so it's a completely different culture in the public service. But NNPC or NNPCL is in a place that is a place that is in a hurry to kill us. So if you enter that kind of cauldron, you have to act quickly or be consumed by it. So obviously he entered with that sort of mentality, but he's politically naive. Bayo is obviously politically naive. So a few missteps, which I pointed out in my column, certain oversights, and also lingering structural problems have made it difficult for him to drive the place. He's made some very, very interesting changes in the last 4 or 5 months. But if we're going to be able to stay that course, ramp up production, which is obviously going up now as a result of some of the pipelines coming back on stream, and begin to deliver and free ourselves of the real pressure that we're facing as a result of dwindling resources, then he needs to be more politically savvy, obviously.
All right, we take a break. So I bring you an excerpt from the column. Now take a listen, and I quote, NNPCL's contemporaries, such as Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, have a market capitalization of $12.89 billion. In contrast, one of its major subsidiaries, ADNOC Gas, has a higher value of $70 billion. Petronas, Malaysia, only 3 years older than NNPC, has a solid global footprint in oil and gas. In Africa, national oil and gas companies such as Sonatrach in Algeria and Sonangol in Angola continue to demonstrate that things can work where people are serious. Now, welcome back to our question and answer session. So, we are optimistic that the Petroleum Industry Act would resolve all the issues with the NNPC and the oil industry at large.
Yes.
Do you think Nigeria is happening to the PIA, like we say these days?
Well, I think that the PIA has been, in my view, in the last 5-6 years, one of the boldest steps to actually restructure and reset the oil and gas industry. But there are structural deficiencies. And I'll take NNPC. I'll give you a typical example of what's going on in the NNPC, which is a spin-off from the limitation of the PIA itself. And so in the PIA, there is nowhere in the PIA Act or in the PIA, as I'm aware, where you have the designation of Group Chief Operating Officer, GCOO, which is the title that Engineer Roland Ewubare currently holds. Now, the executive vice presidents, who are more or less like the key foot soldiers or key, linchpins, refineries, and under the Act, they report directly to the Group Chief Executive Officer, the GCEO. But the GCOO insists that they should report to him. And they say, well, fancy title, but there's no place in the Act that we are obliged to report to you. So that has also obviously created its own problems in terms of the internal politics and structure and the dynamics. And there are also concerns by investors about areas, about the legal framework and areas where there is some sort of lack of clarity and so forth and so on. But on the whole, I think that these are not problems that are insurmountable, because the Act has helped to clarify things a bit further, but there's still a whole lot. And what I just cited about nomenclature may appear to be simple, but structurally in terms of output and that can also have its own dynamics in terms of the way the organization functions. Yes. And of course, as I said, there are also issues about communities, about legal framework and so forth and so on, which is making investors a bit shy or hesitant in terms of going the whole hog and investing as fully in that sector as it ought to, for us to get the full benefits of the Act.
All right, and finally, you seem optimistic that Bayo Ojulari will recover from his momentary naivety and then get his act right. But what if he doesn't?
Great question. Well, I hope for his own sake and for our collective sake he does, because as you said in your intro, he will be the maybe 12th or 13th chief executive.
Yes, it's the 12th.
And that sort of musical chair does not augur well for the industry. It doesn't inspire confidence in investors. But I believe that Bayo has the backing of the president, which is important for success. I believe he has the backing of the president. I also believe he has the backing of and confidence of the board. What he then needs to do is to be more politically savvy, while it's important. And he's done a few positive things, driving up production steadily from about 1.4, 1.5 million barrels at the time he entered to about 1.6, 1.7, inching upwards. But for that to be sustained, he also started making some changes in the refineries, which he has to obviously see through. See through those changes in the refinery and refuse to be blackmailed by people who are insisting that the refineries have to be repaired before. Those refineries should be sold. And he should stop insisting that they are going to. We spent trillions already trying to fix the refineries, and it's all money gone down a black hole. He just needs to put a stop at that madness. He needs to put a stop on that and insist that those refineries should be sold and take more painful decisions, but which hopefully will rebound to Nigeria's collective benefit in the end.
All right, thank you very much. You can read the full text of this article on our website at azuishiekwene.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our content. And perhaps if you leave your email in our comment section, we might send you a newsletter. You don't come to azuishiekwene.com and leave empty-handed. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me once again.
Bye for now.
Conversations with Ishiekwene.